Welcome to the Performance Zone. My name is Dan Alexander, your host, and today I'm joined by Naz Harrison. Now, Naz is a sales trainer and an experienced L&D consultant, formerly the L&D lead for Faden International and Skills Alliance, and has recently ventured out on his own. We're very lucky to be joined by you today, Naz. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Was that an okay intro for you?
Yeah, it's all good. I should get you to forward on my sales calls, mate. It's pretty good.
We should have this all like WWE style, right? And like
Pick
entrance
a pick an
music.
entrance song.
Yeah.
What would your entrance song be?
I was going to ask you the same thing. What would my entrance song be? Um, did you ever watch? Um, did you ever watch like early MMA at all?
A little bit. Yeah.
There was a song called uh, "Country Boy Can't Survive" by there's a guy called Matt Hughes used to have it, and
Okay.
it's real like it's real country. Like I'm massively
Okay.
into country.
I've recently got into country, very recently, but once you're in, it's a rabbit
Oh yeah,
hole.
oh
There's a
yeah.
lot there.
I'm
Um,
in deep.
that's okay. I'll have to check that one out. I'd probably go a bit of Chasing Status.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Badadan kind of that's like my pre-rugby kind of get ready song, get hype song. So it'd probably be something like that.
Oh, nice. So you've played rugby for a while, right?
Yeah, since school. Yeah. Long time. Too long if you ask my wife, but yeah.
Just on the size of your neck, you must be front row.
Yeah. Everyone, if it, like I've played front row for a long time. I've played my front row since uni. But like, if you ask anyone that plays rugby for a long time, that the longer you're in it, the more likely you are to end up in the front row. That's like your body just pushes you towards the front row the older you get.
Is that because you get more compressed in
Yeah,
your
just
knuckles?
slower and slower as well.
No, look, great to have you on, mate. Really pleased to be joining you. And I'd actually say that yeah, we've not known each other for a very long time. You were a referral from somebody I've known for a long time, and actually turns out that you've also trained one of the guys that I trained as well from my first days in recruitment. So we've got a common
Yeah,
link there. We'll come back to.
yeah.
Um, but no, I think we've definitely had an affiliation in terms of like a very common way of thinking
Mm.
about recruitment. But just for the people that haven't met and haven't had the backstory and don't know you yet, just give us a rough kind of, I guess, short synopsis of who you are, like what you're about, and then maybe like your journey from like the early years of recruitment, how you got into this gig, because
Yeah.
not everybody yeah, not everybody follows the path that we do in terms of L&D and
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Kent. Grew up in the Medway Towns area in Kent. Went to university in Brighton. Did a business and marketing degree because I just had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Maybe recruitment was inevitable. I don't know. Didn't know at the time. I was actually at Brighton for 5 years, which is a bit rare. I was a bit of a Van Wilder type character. I was there for longer than most people at uni. But I did a 4 year degree, so I did a year in industry. Um, so I worked for full time in my third, what would have been my third year. I went out and worked for a year in industry in a marketing department of a record company actually, which was pretty cool. It was actually like way too cool a job to get when you're 20, turning 21.
did you mean anyone famous?
Yeah. So I worked for EMI Records.
Oh, nice.
So one of the big, yeah, but well, at the time the only British major record label. So I did 6 months working in digital marketing, which was a pretty new department at the time. I was like updating MySpaces and like managing Facebook profiles. Like this is like 2009, was it 2008? I think it was into 2009. And I was working with bands a lot. So I think the first one I worked with, do you remember the Plain White Tees? Remember the Hey There
Yeah,
Delilah, that
yeah.
song? Yeah, I worked on that. I worked with those guys. They were really cool guys.
Oh,
There was a Dutch band called Alpha Beat that we tried to break. They were a bit of a one-hit wonder. They had a song called Fascination. It's a great little earworm. There's a lot. We were trying to break a lot of new acts. I mean, the big ones that I worked with were like, yeah, Plain White Tees were pretty big at the time. David Guetta did a bit of stuff with him, which is pretty awesome. But most of the guys we were working with were like unknowns. There was like a Ali and AJ with this American duo, like sister duo, that were like really big in the US.
mm.
And speaking, you talked about country earlier. Like I did a bit of work with this country band who were really big in the US. I'd never heard of them because I didn't know anything about country at the time. And I remember like we went to a gig. They did a gig in London, and we were sitting backstage afterwards, and they were like, They're like, oh yeah, it's so much fun. We've not played a venue like this in ages. It was like 150 person venue. And I was just like, oh yeah, do you normally do like bigger venues back home then? They're like, yeah. We're like, we play stadiums. I'm like, all right. Like, yeah, like our last album outsold Justin Timberlake last year. And it was
Wow.
like the Rascal Flats, that like a huge country act, and I just had
Yeah.
no idea who they were. I just sound like an absolute idiot because I just didn't know. But no, it was a really cool internship. I moved on to a contracts team in like the synchronization department, which is like, whenever you hear a song in like a film or a TV or an
Mm.
advert, there's a team that manages that. So I worked with them for 6 months as well, and that was in the sales department of the organization. So it was a really cool job to have, especially at that age. You got to go to a lot of cool like events, got to go to a lot of gigs, a lot of parties and stuff. And yeah, it was a bit of a wild experience. But then, went back to university, and then I actually ran for president of my students' union at the end of that year because we had the financial crash. It wasn't great to be a grad looking for a job in
Mm.
2000 and 2009. So I basically ran for president of my students' union, won that. So spent a year working on behalf of students, which is a pretty pivotal year because it was 2009 to 2010. So we had the general election 2010. That was really big. And
Mm.
that was kind of, I didn't realize at the time, but that was my first kind of recruitment job. That was going out, canvassing people, finding out what people need, trying to connect the right people with things, and a lot of advocacy, a lot of like going in and speaking on behalf of other people. And great job, loved it. Very, very specific jobs have a very specific time in your life. And then when I finished with that, I just had no idea what I wanted to do.
Mm.
I worked very briefly, volunteered for a political campaign out of that, having like that little positive connection, but I never really wanted to stay in that world. And yeah, it was just, I just didn't really know where I was going to go. I had this marketing degree. I had friends that had gone off and done jobs in marketing. EMI had been sold the year I worked there. So private equity taken it over and downsized it massively. I think we're in the process of selling it to another major. So, there weren't really a lot of opportunities there. So I was just like, where do I go? What do I do? I went around my cousin's house for dinner and he works in recruitment. And he was talking to me about it and saying, well, look, this is what the job is and here's what you do. And sort of explained to me what that job could be. And I was like, well, I've done a lot of those things before. I think I could be good at that. And he goes, well, I can put you in touch with some people. And he could put you in touch with the rec to rec. And then it was mad. It was like I was coming from a period of like not really knowing what to do, not really seeing a lot out in the market, to then having 7 interviews booked over the next 2 weeks. That when you're a grad in the recruitment space, the recruitment was doing, I guess, pretty well at the time. This would have been kind of early 2011, like very start 2011. It was just insane. I was like, oh my God, there's this whole industry here that's booming and no one has a clue. And yeah, I just met with a load of different companies, but went and joined a company called the Black Swan Group, which was a relatively startup at the time. I think they've been going for about 6, 7 months or so when I joined. So I was one of the early guys there. But I turned down offers at bigger firms to join them, mainly because I like the fact that I was working with these 3 founders who'd all been top billers in their previous firms that come together to start this new business, and I would have access to these senior guys. Like I wouldn't just be the newbie in a really big organization where I'd maybe very rarely get to see the senior guys. I'd actually be working sitting next to these really experienced sales leaders, and that was my experience. It was great. I love that place. I'm still in touch with all the owners of that business and a lot of people I worked with over the years there. It's where I spent the first over half a decade of my career was working in that organization. That's where I really learned
What type of people
how
were
to
you
do the job.
recruiting?
So I spent the first sort of 9, 10 months working in like middle office banking. So investment banks, middle office is basically non-trading. So after the traders do their stuff, there's a whole world of people that make sure those trades go through. So I was recruiting for those sort of people. And then we quickly realized that was just a terrible, terrible decision. That world was rough. That was like after the crash, that was just, if you want to get a recruiter resilient, put them in that for the best part of the year, because my world was basically speaking to tons of candidates. There's loads of candidates, massive oversupply of candidates in the market. Speaking to loads of people, and one of my targets actually was like meeting 2 candidates a day. So we had to actually go and meet 2 people a day, and like I always hit that target. There was lots of candidates to speak to. But then on the client side, my world is basically, hey, how you doing? Wanted to reach out to you. First of all, they didn't really know who we were because we're quite a new business. So that was a challenge. But then on top of that, it was like, I've actually got to cut my team. Like we're not hiring, we're not growing. So it's really, I mean, I made placements, but it was hard work. That first year was really challenging to kind of break through in a tough market. So I learned a lot about the market forces that play in the recruitment world, like what are the factors that make a good market to be in. And I ended up switching end of that year, still doing the middle office stuff, but focusing more on the hedge fund market because that's a little bit more insulated from some of the downsides that you saw post crash. Hedge funds were slightly different sector, different business model, and actually were doing pretty well. So that's where I spent the rest of my sales career, was recruiting into the kind of hedge fund and asset management worlds.
How much would you say that first year has defined you as a professional in this industry?
Yeah, I think it must. I mean, I never really thought about that. It's a really good question. I, I think in hindsight, it definitely has made me more resilient for sure, because it's you can't go through a period like that. I think a lot of people would have quit, if I'm honest, because a lot of people join recruitment thinking they're going to get rich really quickly, and there's a lot of people that come in, do well really quickly. They're in the right market, right attitude, good training, all the rest of it, and they come in, they execute well. And there's other people where not even necessarily their fault. It's a slow, but it takes a little longer to get going. And I think for me, it was a combination of the market not being 100% right, but also the I don't think I was approaching it in the right way. It was a small company. We only had limited. We didn't have a trainer. We didn't have an L&D or anything like that. I was just trying to learn from people around me, and a lot of people were doing slightly different things.
How many consultants at the time when you joined?
God, when I joined, not many. There were like 15, 16 of us when I joined. We ended up growing a lot over the years. I think, at our peak were like 50 people globally. So it was a great kind of journey to be on with the organization. And when I joined, we were only in the UK. We ended up launching offices in Singapore, Australia, and New York as well. So, really, amazing experience. But yeah, I think that first year, it definitely toughened me up a lot in terms of it's not going to happen straight away. As long as you're confident that you are doing the right things and you're learning every day and you're trying to get that a little bit better every day, you will get the results. And I did. It all came for me eventually.
Because obviously, look, I'm guessing in what you do now, some of your clients, and even when you were in-house as well, you'd be involved in those interview processes, right? And putting your opinion when it comes to selection. Now, I often think back to my first gig in recruitment and what it was like when I was a rookie, and again, startup as well. And I try and paint almost like the bleakest picture of recruitment I possibly can to like the rookies coming in, because there's so many people like that are, oh yeah, you're gonna earn 100, you're gonna earn 100K in your first year.
Yeah,
It's like you're not. You're probably not. You can.
it's possible. Yeah, it is possible.
It,
I've seen
it
people
has
do it, but
happened, right?
it's rare. Yeah.
But when if I was a grad coming in, right, and I was talking to you about recruitment,
Yeah.
what would you be telling me to expect?
So my answer's changed a lot in the last 6 months since starting my own business, actually. And actually, what I would say to a lot of a grad thinking about recruitment is it absolutely is a vehicle for you to earn a lot more, a lot quicker than you would in other industries, for sure. If you can come in, you can learn quickly and you're good. You absolutely can earn a lot more than your friends, your peers, in other industries. But actually, for me, with the benefit of reflection, one of the biggest sales I think about coming into recruitment, or any sales job, if I'm honest, is the skills you learn in your first few years working in a sales job, especially in a tough market, or you have some challenges in that role. Those skills you learn are going to stay with you for the rest of your life, and they're going to come back to you in a million different ways, in a positive sense. If I think about my last 4 or 5 months since starting my own business, what am I doing every day? I'm a sales junior again. Right? I'm reaching out to new people. I'm pitching myself. And it's not just the skills, it's the resilience, it's the mindset, all those things that came from my early years in recruitment. So, I can't remember who it was, but I saw an interview with a CEO once, and they were talking about the fact that any new CEO should have to spend 6 months working in the sales team of their business. If they've not come from sales themselves, and that a lot of CEOs don't, right? They should go and have to spend 6 months working in the sales team of their business before they take on the job of a CEO, because the job of a CEO is really to sell the business. It's to go out and sell the vision, sell the business, whether that's to external investors, to new hires, to the existing team, whatever it is, that they are out there selling what the business is doing, and they're selling what's happening. That's super true. That's really true for me. I think a lot of people don't realize that sales skills are life skills, and if you can come into a recruitment job, for example, and get really good at those sales skills, you're going to have the keys to a great life, whether or not you stay in recruitment forever or not. You can leave recruitment and go do something completely different, but your ability to understand what someone else needs or wants and sell to that or pitch to that, your ability to persuade, to influence, to convince, all those things come from a really good foundation in sales. And whatever job you're doing, whatever you end up doing with your life, those skills are invaluable.
What about, like, because obviously resilience is one of those things in the early days, right? We touch on. It's a really difficult thing to measure. What questions would you be advising founders to ask to measure that resilience?
Yeah, I mean, I would just ask. I mean, don't ask someone if they're resilient. Ask them to demonstrate show the way they've demonstrated resilience, right? I mean, I would ask about the toughest thing they've ever faced. And look, you interview a 21-year-olds, right? They might not have had a particularly challenging thing happen in their life at that point. That everything's relative, right? You're 14 years old and you ask a girl out, she says no, that's your odds over, right? That's it, give up. Nothing is ever going to happen to you, right? It's massive. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not a big deal. You move on. So it's okay if a 21-year-old doesn't have these really profound life-changing events that they've had to battle through. But what have they dealt with that they have personally found difficult? And even if the example they give isn't something you personally would consider that big a challenge, yeah, because you're in your 30s or 40s and you've just had more life come at you, you've had to deal with bigger things. So whatever example they give, whether it's something relatively small or something quite challenging, the key thing I would look for is, okay, how did you go about dealing with that? What was your process? What was your mechanism for dealing with that challenge? And did you change that process after going through that experience? Did you learn something from that made you think, actually, what, I'm going to approach these challenges differently in the future, and what does that look like now? I think being resilient isn't about being able to deal with every single thing that comes at you, because we all have things that, new things come up in our lives that we find really difficult at the time. It's about, can you build a really good system, and can that system be improved over time? That means that the big stuff won't completely overwhelm you.
Need a moment to catch your breath? Ready to go from good to unstoppable? At Bamboo Performance, our one-on-one coaching, exclusive live events, and dynamic online recruitment training platform help recruiters smash every target every time. Visit our website now and discover your highest potential. Let's get back to the show. Would you still hire someone that hasn't gone through, if like, say it's your business, right? Your money. It always makes
Yeah.
Would you still hire somebody that hasn't gone through anything, like, and they've lived a very sheltered life and they want to come into recruitment?
There'd have to be a really compelling reason outside of that to do so. I wouldn't say no, like a hardcore no. There would have to just be I need to understand someone's motivations. So I've worked with people that have come from very privileged backgrounds, right? They went to fantastic schools, incredible families have supported them, never really had to worry about money or, survival or anything like that. And they've been phenomenal recruiters because they've got really strong motivation. So, I think we talk about resilience a lot because we know the job's hard and we know there's going to be setbacks. And it's like, well, how, irrespective of where you come from, what you've done, you're going to encounter those setbacks. So how are you going to deal with it? So I understand why it's super important for, business owners and MDs, managers, to find that out about people. But what I would say is that if someone is really driven to achieve something, then that could be the motivation to put them through. Whether there's resistance to that, success or not, they're going to be driven to push that through, because being able to overcome challenges is really important, but also being able to motivate yourself when things are going well. I've seen just as many recruiters put their feet up when things are going pretty well, and then things start to go bad again. That's not good either. So really, what I understand about someone is, like, what is it why are you doing this? Why do you need to be successful? Why do you want to be successful? What's pushing you to do so? And if they give a really good, strong answer for that I buy into, if they haven't had a big challenge in their life that they've had to overcome, cool. That's not something I necessarily hold against them if I really understood their motivations for wanting to be successful. I worked with a CEO once who his whole family were doctors, and he didn't get through medical school, and he was like considered to be like the failure in the family because he's the only one that's not a doctor. I think both his parents were doctors, his two brothers were doctors, something like that, and he was just considered to be, early on, he was like basically made to feel like he wasn't, good, hadn't done well enough. And he went into recruitment, and that's the fuel that drove him. He wanted to prove to his family that he was, a successful person, and he ended up becoming, a very successful CEO. Took a business to an exit as well. Like, it's not a, whatever setbacks he'd had up until that point, that wasn't the thing that made him successful in the end of the day.
So really interesting. We didn't plan to go down this route on this.
Yeah.
I think it's just quite interesting to compare notes, and I think you might have changed maybe the way that I see, just in your answer there, the way that I see that, because I think, I don't know, like I interviewed a lad once, and he went through, came from like fairly good background, and had done quite well at school, and I asked him that question. So what's the way that I phrase it is, what's your darkest day? Walk me through it, take me there. What did you see? What did you smell? Like, what did you hear? Like, why was that so bad? And how did you get through it? And what did you learn from that? And um, whether he was masking and just didn't want to tell me that, because some people don't want to open up fully and go like, here's all my baggage, Dan, right? But he said, oh, well, I failed a module once at uni. Okay, cool. Is there anything else? He goes, no, not really. That's probably the worst thing. I was like, oh, okay, right. And I was like, okay, well, why was that so bad? Is, oh, well, I had to do this, that, and like my family expectations and so forth. And I thought, well, okay, either you haven't been through anything, which isn't necessarily, I mean, not everybody has to come with a war story, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's not their fault they haven't been, they've had a good life, but the second thing is, if you had been through something, then like I want to really get to know that person at a really deep level without any masks in there. So I'm always looking for like an air of like being really genuine. But would I hold it against someone if they haven't been through anything? Like, not necessarily, but I think there's an underlying kind of factor in terms of I don't want recruitment to be the hardest thing you've ever done.
Yeah,
because
I understand that.
It's gonna be shit. There are gonna be days when you want to leave, and we can see this dream, but also there's this whole other side where, it's called like, I call it the trough of disillusionment, where it's good, it's good, it's good, it's great. Oh no, it's not anymore. Oh shit, right? And then you're at that point. It could be after a week, it can be after 3 months, but you're gonna turn up one day and go, I want to leave, right? And I don't want to anymore.
I just feel like, I mean, in my experience, and I've trained, gosh, thousands, I think, of graduates at this point in my career, right? I was at a very high volume grad hiring model business, and running their academies for years, right? So I've had tons of grads come through that period, and we definitely try to kind of look at the data, look at the science. Let's look at the people hiring, who does well, who doesn't. Let's track their performance against what we saw at the time of interview and the assessment process, and what does that tell us about who we should be hiring and all the rest of it. And you could definitely, there are trends for sure, and every business that looks at that will find some interesting stuff. It doesn't mean you don't get surprised. Everyone who's onboarded grads will tell you there's going to be people they can think about that will go, yeah, I didn't think they were going to make it. I'll be honest with you. I thought they were going to flush out pretty quick, and now they're one of our top billers. And there'll also be people that'll go, you know what, they came in hot, like amazing interview, really good start, thought they were going to crush it, and then within 4 months they were gone. They faded and gone. There are always going to be outliers. I think humans are complicated. We try and control recruitment. Someone once told me recruitment's all about controlling the controllables, and I've always liked that phrase. So as leaders, we try to control what we can control. So we will look at the data, we will look at trying to make logical, educated guesses on things. But honestly, there's always going to be outliers to that. So absolutely have a good process and absolutely vet on the qualities that you want, but you will still get surprised by people.
Yeah, that's a very, very, very valid point. just want to just kind of skip ahead. Like, as
Mm,
you were at Black Swan for a few years. You then went to another
yeah,
firm, but then
yeah,
you moved into a sales trainer role, right?
yeah.
So I'm curious to sort of zoom in on that and understand like what as a manager of recruiters, what was the motivation for you to go, do you know what? I'm on this path and I want to go on this completely separate track. Like
Yeah,
what was it for you?
money and power, Dan. I've got to be honest with you, it was all about money.
Right
uh,
answer.
yeah, no, honest answer. Generally, I'd been in sales for about 7, 8 years at that point, just over 7 years, I think. I'd really enjoyed my time in sales. I was a manager. I certainly had not taken my career as far as it could have gone in sales, but I'd taken it a good way. And I had to take a step back to think about why I was doing what I was doing and what I liked about what I was doing. So did I want to be in recruitment still? Yeah, I still like recruitment. Okay, cool. Do I like being a manager? Yeah, I like being a manager. Really like being a manager. Cool. Why did I like being a manager? So I think about why I like being a manager. Do I like sales? Yeah, I do like sales. Okay, what do I like about sales? And actually, when I kind of did that stock check and really kind of think about where I was at in my career and what I was good at, what I liked, and what I wanted to go, I realized that actually the things that I liked the most was helping other people get better.
Mm,
That was my motivation has shifted. I wasn't, coming into the world trying to just earn as much money for myself as possible and all the rest of it. I actually really liked, and to be fair, that had always been there, even when I was early on. I think because I'd had a lot of life experiences before I came into recruitment. I wasn't just, zip 3 years through uni out, first job, still very green. When I was, post my students union, I was managing we had 300 staff and
mm.
a budget of 1.6 million quid that I was in charge of. That's mad for a 22-year-old to be in charge of that. So you go from that into recruitment where it's like, here, your KPIs, go on the phones, mate. That was a bit of an adjustment for sure. But cool, that's fine. But I'd always had this sense of like I liked, working with other people, helping other people out. And actually, it was the CEO of Black Swan was the one that put the idea in my head. We were out for a beer, and he was the one that said to me, you know what, um, you know, I think you do really well in an L&D job. Because up until that point, I'd never worked for a company that had an in-house trainer. So
Mm.
the concept of an in-house L&D function was a bit alien to me. We'd had external trainers come in and do like training days with us, so I understood that. But I genuinely was like, I don't know what an in-house L&D would do all day
Mm.
because everyone I'd worked up to that point was a relatively boutique firm, so it just never been a thing that we had. I never worked at a firm that had an in-house TA. It was we had like office managers and stuff, but like nobody that was doing the wider operational functions. So I was kind of like, cool, I'll check that out. And he knew a rec to rec and put me in touch with him, and that person knew one of the MDs at Fade International, which is where I joined as my first L&D job.
That must have been at a time where how long had Faden been going at that point?
They'll go for a while. Yeah, they'll go for it. They'd had I think they were on a run of like some really big success just before I joined. So when I joined, and this was the summer of 2017 when I joined, they just come out. I think they just hit about 500 heads globally, which is massive for a lot of recruitment firms. 500 already you're a very big recruitment firm across the whole spectrum of recruitment firms. But it still felt very connected. When I joined an L&D team. There were 7 of us globally in L&D. That we weren't. Um, you know, I didn't join this massive army of people. I was very fortunate that I was in London.
How many
London,
consultants in the company?
500,
500.
500. Yeah. So yeah, and that was
20
probably
each.
stretching.
7, no, 80 each ish.
Yeah, we tried to keep a 50-1 ratio as ideal for
Okay.
us, and I carried that through my other in-house L&D jobs.
Yeah.
We always try to keep it 50 consultants to 1 L&D, just because then everyone gets like an hour every 2 weeks. With other stuff you've got to do, that kind of works pretty well. Um, but what they were obviously in a point where they had a bit of investment they did like a deal with HSBC at the time. They had some investment and that fueled a bit of growth that they'd already gone through that, and they were kind of working towards like this kind of rapid growth model they were trying to work on. They had the formula. I came in, they had a really good formula for how they kind of onboarded people, how they got people up and running. They knew what they were looking for. They were like, we're grad focused model. This is what we do. That was all there. The The training was really good. The training was excellent. I mean, I had nothing to compare it to. In hindsight, I can appreciate how good the training was as well. But it was a really, really solid thing, but it was still very kind of like very kind of like mid to late like early 2010s thinking of training, which was, a lot of classroom based stuff, workbooks, that kind of stuff that you probably experience yourself when you're kind of in a sales career. But the we were going through this period of really modernizing the training. So that was a fantastic time to join because the director at the time was really working on a lot of like how can we make this training more engaging, how can we make it more practical, how can we focus more on the real skills of recruitment as opposed to just sitting in a classroom, a load of PowerPoints and a workbook and a few exercises. So it was a really exciting time to join the business, and like I was there for about 5 years, well, 4.5, I think in total, and we went from the 500 heads to just over 1,000, plus an exit at the time as well. So we brought in a private equity sale while I was there as well. So it was amazing time to be part of that business.
How did the firm
I learned
change during
loads.
that time?
Sorry?
How did the firm change during that time?
Oh,
Yes.
it changed a lot. Yeah, it changed a lot. It definitely, it was a lot of it was kind of already in motion when I got there. So there was this real shift to kind of really professionalize things. The CEO had been CEO for around about a year, I think, or just under a year. And he was based in the US at the time, and he was relocating back to the UK. He's a British guy originally, but he launched the US business for the company. So he was coming back to the UK. So there was a lot of really kind of professionalizing a lot of our support structures. So a lot of investment went into the operations of the business. So marketing, compliance, L&D, HR, IT, like all these things that they had all these departments, but there was just a lot of resources put into making them best in class. And so I obviously personally benefited from that. A lot of other people did. I was put through a coaching qualification while I was there. They really wanted to make all of us, the best version of what we could be in the jobs we were in, because they knew that was going to impact the sales floor. And then I think it was just from a sales perspective, to be honest with you, that core model was there. That didn't change. I don't think it's changed massively since I left as well, because it does work. I think what changed on the sales floor was just really kind of trying to ramp up management capacity, because it was a real challenge for, as the business grew and grew and grew, and you had multiple layers of managers, obviously that changes the nature of business. You're less connected as a sales leader to some of the stuff that's going on. So, it was one of the brands when I joined, there were about 30 odd people, 30, 35 maybe, in this one business unit, the engineering unit. So the MD of that business knew everyone there by name. At the time I left, there were best part of 100. You can't know everyone fully, so you have to have a really good management layer underneath you that are running things the way you want them to be run and are connected to what's going on, so you don't miss things.
When you say, just to back up like a couple minutes there, when you said you wanted to make the training more realistic to the job,
Mm-hmm.
more real rather than the classroom based stuff.
Yeah.
What were the main things that the business changed at that time?
Yeah, so when our onboarding program was revamped, what we did was we took it from being, I think it was like was it 12 days total onboarding, pretty much all in the classroom. And we were doing exercise classes, we were doing role plays, all that kind of stuff, but it was like very heavily classroom based. And that was the academy when I joined the business. That's the academy I learned. What we did was we stripped back some of the classroom elements and replaced them with on-desk exercises. So instead of it being like, let's be in a classroom all day, it was like, let's go on the phones today. So, we were really good at, someone's first day, we would get them to like listen into phone calls. So when they came into the classroom, they'd heard a sales call and it was all good. We used work sampling as part of our interview process. So everyone that was there had some exposure to being on the phones and speaking to candidates, or at least listening to someone do it. But what we did was we actually took that and put it into the academy, and the trainer would listen to calls throughout the program. And we were like, okay, cool. You're going to come in, we're going to do a bit of theory, make sure you understand what we're trying to do here. So do candidate qualification today. Let's look at the call. How's it structured? What do we want to know? What are the types of questions we're going to ask? Why? And really kind of dig all that out. And then, okay, cool. Let's go do it. So then we'd be on the desk putting it into practice that day. And with a trainer facilitating it, so we could like listen to calls, give them all feedback, which was a challenge because we were doing like classroom sizes got quite aggressive, in that first year. We were, I think the biggest I ever had was about 28, maybe 30 in a single class, which was
Wow.
tough.
Yeah.
Tough. But what we ended up doing is we ended up making our and this is a big learn for me and something I put in place in other places. We made our onboarding program shorter. Actually, we really looked at it and goes, what needs to be in this and what doesn't. What are we spending like a day and a half on how to qualify a candidate? Why? Actually, could we be a bit more efficient with this and get them doing the job quicker? Because we know that people learn best when they're actually doing it, but you don't want to send someone out completely unprepared, not confident to do the activity. So what's the right balance to be struck there?
How many days is your ideal to get a, let's just say delivery only, right? Not 360, but like
Okay, yeah.
delivery only doing like on the phones. When's your ideal time for them to make their first call?
Them to make their first call,
Yeah.
second day.
Yeah.
Yeah, as early as you possibly can. Like that's the job.
Yeah.
I think some firms are very hesitant to get people on the phones because
Yeah.
they're worried that they'll have a bad call and it will put them off if it's too early. Well, we talked about resilience earlier, right? Well, they didn't get to show you a lot of resilience in the interview. You
Yeah.
show me now, then, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather know in day 2 or 3 than month 2, right? So yeah, I think there's definitely an element of get them doing it as quickly as possible so they can actually experience it. And that's one of the things I did when I joined the business once. We changed the academy very quickly to reflect that wasn't part of the academy when I joined. So we changed the academy and moved the first calls from I think week 2, I think it was, or end of week 2, up to day 3, I think it was. We did it. So day 2 was call shadowing, and day 3 was actually being on the phones doing it. I remember there was some nervousness on the sales floor actually of like, oh, this is different, and how they're going to do. And it went really well. Like it was a pretty small group, there's only 3 of them, but they were like getting on with it. And there's this one person that was a little shy in the classroom, and they were like hammering the phones and really checking themselves into it.
Day three
And
for me is the magic number, Naz. I
yeah,
think day three is like day one is just like, onboarding, he's your
yeah.
market, he's like educational. Day two is this is what you're gonna be doing tomorrow. And then day three is this is doing it.
If you don't get them on the phones in day 2, I would definitely encourage you to do some call shadowing.
Yeah.
Like actually spend a bit of time on the desk. I think you want them on the desk as much as practically possible because that's the job.
What
If they so
what things would need to be in what things would the company need to put in place in order to facilitate that happening?
what the call shadowing?
No, the actual calls
Oh,
themselves, like day two, day three, like
they got yeah. There's a bit of prep work you do beforehand. So obviously you need to know what markets you want someone in. Ideally, I mean, again, some people like to figure it out after someone joins. They don't necessarily hire for a specific team, and they just bring in an intake and then figure it out as they go. But they should at least know what the potential markets they could be in are, so they can go, okay, this is where it's going to be relevant for you to make calls. But it's a lot more effective if you know they're going to be in market X and you hire them for market X, because then all the work they do in the academy, is relevant work. You definitely want to be putting in place on your CRM. I'd be putting together a short list of lapsed candidates, to get stuck into, at least 100 sitting there to like, so when they, it's like you're sitting there, you're trying to learn the tech at the same time. And it's like, right, yeah, we need you to make a lot of sales calls. Like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, cool, here's a list. If you click this number, it'll ring them. If you click this button, you'll see their CV. You've just done the training to know what you're going to ask them. So cool, start at A and finish on Z, right?
Mm.
And just try and keep it as simple as possible for them to just go and do it, because you'll learn a lot, right? Like who goes in and cracks on, and who is a bit hesitant, or who finds reasons to not make calls, etc. Because you want to isolate that and iron it out as quickly as possible. So make it as simple as possible for them to come in and just get on the phones, so that you can really kind of see, okay, what am I working with here?
Need a moment to catch your breath? Ready to go from good to unstoppable? At Bamboo Performance, our one-on-one coaching, exclusive live events, and dynamic online recruitment training platform help recruiters smash every target every time. Visit our website now and discover your highest potential. Let's get back to the show. It's so interesting that this is probably our third or fourth time talking, and there are so many similar practices that But I guess that's what good looks like, right? So
Yeah,
it doesn't shock me. Which is interesting. But yeah, that burn list, I call it like a list of B player candidates that like you don't read that
yeah,
candidates another one way of looking at
yeah. Just run a search in your system for people that you've not spoken to in 6 months or a year.
yeah.
You'll be surprised when people are on there because they might turn out they're not relevant anymore. Great, okay, well that's the jobs. Right, cool. To take on the system then, or archive them.
Interesting. So your journey at Faden. So obviously, you joined them and then promoted twice in that business.
Yeah,
And by the end of it, you were the lead there. So how you were running? I'm guessing running the L&D team. All
I was
of
running one. Yeah, so we ended up segmenting the N&D team out into three parts, and I ran one of those three parts. Yeah, so I was really fortunate, as I mentioned, when I joined that we were only seven globally. Obviously, that changed over the time. We grew quite a lot, um, and I got promoted to senior. And even when I was senior, I was still I was doing a bit of everything. So, our L&D program at the time when I joined was we had an onboarding program, we had some senior workshops, and then we had something called our expert sales program, which was for kind of a good to great program. And I, throughout my time as like a L&D and then senior L&D, was kind of working across those three programs. We then brought in a management training program, and I ran the first management training program that we did in house. We used to use external trainer, and then we built our own in house program. So I ran the first one of those, which was a really good opportunity.
Mm.
And then so at that point, I'd kind of done a bit of everything. And I don't, I started doing less academies, but I still did some. You never fully stepped out of that because it was such a big part of the business's model. And I like doing them actually because it keeps you connected to people in the business.
Mm.
And we got to a point that then COVID happened, right? So we went into to lockdown, where it was March 2020, right?
Mm.
Obviously, no one has a clue what we're doing. And I remember actually the CEO at the time saying, because we were like, are we going to get furloughed? Are we going to lose our job? Like, what's happening? We're all at home. I remember the CEO saying, you are my most important team right now, because, you know, we've got a load of people out in the market that just don't know what they're doing, or their jobs have just changed overnight. They're all terrified. I've got managers that have no idea how to manage remotely. I've got people that don't think they can do recruitment at home. Like, we really need the L&D team to help us out here. So I was doing like 5 7 coaching sessions a day with people. I was actually busier working from home in lockdown than I was when I was in the office full time. But that was the period where things really started to change for us. I was given the opportunity to completely redesign the whole onboarding academy.
Mm.
So I did that in time for an onboarding. It was August time we onboarded new people. So went from like March to July without hiring anybody, obviously. I remember my director calling me up going, are you comfortable to come back in the office? I was like, yeah, I'm happy to come back in the office. He was like, great. That's good news because we need to hire 60 people. Faden doesn't miss targets. So one thing you need to say about this is like they don't miss targets. We might have to delay things, but we always hit our targets, right? So they're like, yeah, we haven't hired for a while, so we need to hire 60 people in the next month. But we can't put them all in the training room because we have to socially distance. So our academy product doesn't work. Can you fix that for me, please? I was like, all right, let's go, let's do it. So we had to completely redesign how the academy worked, which I took a lead on, and we rolled that out. And it was a really good, actually, it was a really good experience. We ended up with the new version of what we had there. We onboarded those 60 people. Credit to the TA team for finding people out there and stuff. But we onboarded 60 people, and those 60 people made $1 million in revenue in their first 6 months in the business. $1 million in FI. So it was really great. I think it was really great for the business to kind of see that, whatever life was throwing at the organization, our model was still working. Yes, we had to make some changes in how we delivered certain things, but we could absolutely hit the goals we wanted to hit. So, that was a really good experience. And I was kind of given the opportunity at that point. We decided internally that we were going to split out the L&D team into 3 separate parts. And I was given the opportunity to kind of lead. I was given first dibs basically on which part I wanted to lead. And I chose the sales lead. So we split into onboarding, sales, and management. So sales basically non-grads, non-managers is the best way to explain it, right? And I chose that stream because I felt like that was the area that we hadn't quite cracked. We had some really good stuff going on there. The expert sales program that I'd been running for a while at that point was, I didn't write that, I didn't create that program, but I've been running it for years, and it was an exceptional program, worked really, really well. But it was great to get you to kind of like a 500K a year mark. And there was nothing beyond that. And we wanted to really give people an opportunity to kind of excel in the business beyond that. We had people that were billing more than that. We had a few people, but there was no codified system in the business to help people become that. We had a lot of stuff on the management stream, but nothing going up into kind of like the super biller status. So I felt that was a really good opportunity to do some work in that area, and work in that space. And that's what kind of attracted me to that. And I really like coaching. And obviously when you're going up into kind of senior levels, it becomes a lot more about coaching than teaching, because it's such an individual journey when you're talking about, especially when you're trying to do something that hasn't been done before in your organization. Like you can't, I can't teach someone to be £1 million biller. Like, there is no, cool, yeah, just do this course and you'll bill £1 million. Like, I mean, if I figure that out, I'd be all right. Like, I think I'd be earning £1 million. But that isn't really how it works. It's such an individual pathway at a certain point.
It's so interesting. I'm just going to pull up just here because this is quite an interesting thing, right?
Yep.
So what you've just mentioned there, bear in mind, we haven't ever really compared notes and conversations, right? But this I think is what you're describing. So just bear with me, my massive mugshot here on the page. 1 second.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So,
Yep.
like the interesting thing is like what you've just described here is exactly, this would be your onboarding. This is the sales piece, and that's
Yep.
the leadership. It's the
Yep.
exact same thing, right? So for anyone listening to this, thinking about I'm a huge advocate that like the most of your revenues is going to come from that cohort of people that are
Yep.
literally, that are
Massively.
those senior performers, right? But this is where this conversation was always going to go, because
Yeah.
this is the bit where we really had a kind of a symphony, would you call it? So what what are you seeing out there for senior recruiters?
Nowhere near enough. Nowhere near enough, which is why it's one of the things that spurred me to start my business, was because I feel like our senior salespeople are pretty underserved in the market at large. That's not to say everybody gets it wrong. There's some really good examples out there of people doing a lot, but generally speaking, I think our seniors kind of get left by the wayside to kind of get on with it. And I get it. I don't think it comes from a negative place all the time. I think when you're a business owner, you're not looking for problems, right? Like there's enough genuine problems to sort out. But if you've got someone who's been in the business for a couple of years' time and they're hitting target, you're not going to try and find, let's try and spend a lot of time worrying about that person, because they're not causing you problems right now. When you've got issues here, here, and here, and here, you're going to divert your energies to them. So it's not always like a negative thing. But I genuinely feel like our senior population, and I define seniors as anyone kind of 12, 18 months plus, who hasn't gone down a management stream. I think that a lot of them are kind of left to get on with it. If they struggle, they start to fall backwards, that then they will get attention put on them. But it's normally corrective attention. So it's like, okay, let's get back to basics, or let's get back to doing what you were doing before. I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding about how people develop. When someone starts to roll backwards, it's not because necessarily they're less good at doing what they were doing. Like, their skills haven't disappeared overnight. It's quite often because they're not challenged anymore. They're finding the job a little bit boring, and it affects their motivation, which is why coaching is really important. Actually, quite often when I work with a senior person who has gone from a period of performance to maybe underperformance, what I initially want to figure out is not a skills assessment of can they do the job, because look at their billings 6 months ago, they can do the job. I want to know what's changed for them, and sometimes that might mean them some stuff in the market that they haven't reacted to, and okay, cool, that we can figure that out. But actually, more often than not, it's their attitude, it's their mindset has shifted, and a lot of the time it's because they just haven't had any development. They've been doing the job for a while now. All the investment has gone in. They converted that into their performance, and then it's kind of dries up at that point, and they just don't know where their career is going to go. And it's just like, yeah, do what you're doing last year, but do more. Or there'll be conversations like, oh yeah, you've got to find some bigger clients to work with, or accounts that you can sit on, because that's really what the game is all about. It's getting that really good account. It's like, yeah, that's great to have a great account that you can sit on and can earn a lot of money from. But actually, like, what what's the investment the company is making into the skills that that person has and making them better at the job? Because we all want to get better. We all want to improve. We want to feel like the word I use a lot is momentum, right? Everybody wants to feel like the career has momentum, that it's going somewhere, that there is a path ahead of them, that they're on some sort of a journey, and whether at the beginning, middle, or tail end of that journey, they are pushing forward. And even when they get to the tail end of the journey, there's another journey to go on once they get there. So I think a lot of people kind of they work really hard to get their people from a rookie all the way through to being like a senior consultant or principal consultant or something. And it's like, yeah, great, you've hit the mountaintop. And then it's either cool, you can go become a manager, and well, that's a whole new world of skills to learn there, or it's just nah, keep cracking on, mate. You're doing great. Like keep going. And that's where I feel I'm really passionate about it, because I just feel like there's so much that we can do to help develop seniors. You know, if you're in a business right now and your top performer is doing £500,000 a year, you know that there are firms out there where people are doing £1 million a year, right? You know it's possible. So what are you doing to turn that 500k biller into £1 million biller? Because I promise you, it's a lot more rewarding and it's a lot easier to help that person get to £1 million than it is to hire 2 or 3 new people and get them up to 500 grand between them. Like a lot easier. But we'll focus on hiring rather than developing the people we've got. And it's about getting the right balance between both, right? And the downside's just as dangerous. You know, like that 500k biller that you're just leaving to it because they're not, not having issues and they're just billing. You know, what if they've been sitting there for 6 months feeling like they're not getting developed? And they don't really, there's nothing in the business they can see. There's no one above them that's earning more than them, billing more than them they can learn from. There's no one, there's no programs around, there's no support system to help them get to the next level. How long do you think it's going to be until that person starts thinking, maybe I'll just go do this myself and keep all the money rather than, getting a commission for it? Or another company comes along that does have those things in place that can offer them the development that they feel like they're missing at the moment. It is a huge risk to a business to not focus on those people, because just like the graph you showed, yeah, that's where your profit is coming from. It's coming from those senior people. And I would encourage any MD or any business owner now who's got a team of salespeople, like, okay, cool, sit down and look at your people from a macro view. I'm sure you've got relationships with every one of those people individually, and you might sit there and think, oh no, I've caught up with them all recently, everyone's all good, I'm not at risk here. No problem. Take a step back, look at everyone in your business, and divvy up each person based on the contribution to the NFI that they're making, right? So you've got your lowest to highest. Then do the same thing, but divvy them up in terms of proportion of time you spend with those people. And I guarantee you'll be spending a disproportionate amount of your time with the people that are providing the lowest amount of revenue. And that's okay to a degree, because there's going to be people that are underperforming that you're trying to get to performance. So that's fine. But how much time are you helping that you could be spending, maybe a little bit extra time with some people that are your highest performers that could then take them to a much higher level.
You spent some time at Skills Alliance, right?
Yeah.
So you might know a business called Striker.
I've heard of it. I don't know it particularly well, but
they're more med devices unless what you're doing was
right. Okay.
Striker. It's interesting because I know a few people that worked at Striker, and just they were known for being in the med devices industry, kind of like an aggressive organization.
Okay.
And the one of the stories, again, how true this is, I don't know. I've got some friends that probably actually be able to correct me on this. They used to say at the Christmas parties, the reps would wear a green badge or a red badge, depending upon if you'd hit your targets. And the manager was basically shun you if you were wearing a red badge.
Oh,
I don't know how true that is, but one of the
good Lord.
they used to go through this thing called the Gallup, right, which is an organization like psychometric testing.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So anyway, they had a different Gallup for managers as they did for reps.
Makes sense.
One of the questions that they asked the managers this organization, to my understanding, was you've got 2 people in the team. One is underperforming and one is overperforming. Who do you spend your time with? That exact question. And the amount of people where it's sunk time into people that you're not getting a return back on investment. And if you can get a 20% increase on a senior that's doing 500k versus a 20% return on someone that's doing 100k, I think that it's our nature to go, that person not performing, they need help. Whereas actually what people miss is exactly that point you just made, is that you're running a business here, right?
Yeah,
You're running a business, and your business is to make, yeah, it's to make everybody as good as they could possibly be, and not to, but I'm sure that if you've gotten to that point, you've already put a lot into them anyway, right?
yeah,
So you're absolutely bang on the money where there's not enough out there, right?
yeah.
And I'm pleased that you're on the scene now, Nas, because I've been flying this flag, solo for the last 4 years. It's good to have an ally and someone that I can run the business to.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's so important because
Mm,
um, it's people. Your people don't need more training. Like,
mm,
that's the onboarding piece, right? That's the one-on-one how to. But once you've gotten someone to the point where they know what they're doing, and the biggest thing is, it's not a knowledge problem. It's not because they don't know what to do. It's
yeah.
usually because, and I use the example of I've probably used it already in this podcast, but like the example of fitness, right? In terms of, let's say your goal was to get a six pack for the summer.
Yeah.
You've probably already got the knowledge, but
Mm,
your behaviors like might say otherwise, that that's not where you're going to get to. And this is
yeah.
exactly the same thing. Like, these people already know how to do BD, they already know how to do stuff, but there
Yeah.
are limiting beliefs and things that these people are saying to themselves that are literally costing you hundreds of thousands in
Yeah.
revenue by them believing that stuff.
And I would say where there is additional knowledge to be had, because I would say that I totally agree with what you just said. I do think there are some additional level up knowledge instructions you can have at the senior level to really refine your process a little bit more, um, but and enhance it. But we live in an age where people have got more access to content and information than any time in human history, right? Every single person has got a supercomputer in their hands where you can instantly access for free whatever you want to know. Just go into YouTube and type in, how to enhance my recruitment sales experience. You're going to start getting stuff getting flying at you, right? TikTok, there are reels and reels of people with like little nuggets of information, sales stuff, and we'll all have our individual content people that provide good stuff that we like, right? Um, if you want to enhance what you know or change your perspective on what you're doing, you could very easily find new knowledge and information. But I wouldn't hire a coach for that, right? I think there are mechanisms a company can put in place. Like, what is a company doing to encourage a culture of learning? What all of
Mm.
your people are trying to, find out new things all the time. I see a lot of companies do that a lot with their markets, quite a lot, right? They'll talk about, okay, what are we learning about our market? So let's make sure we're showing that knowledge internally. But are they doing that about sales? How many companies will do a roundup on a Friday where they'll talk about, oh, tell us an interesting story about a new client you've learned about this week, or a most interesting bit of market information or market gossip you've heard this week, and they'll talk about that. How many of us saying, cool, who can tell us the most interesting new thing they've learned about sales? I don't hear that a lot, and
Mm.
yet that's what we do. That's our job. You're a salesperson, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like, we should be talking about that stuff all the time. We should love that stuff. We should this is one of the greatest jobs in the world. If you get good at it and really embrace it, it's one of the, the easiest ways to level up your life out there. If you can really get good and embrace a sales career. So, we should really be passionate about what we're doing, and we should encourage people to care about what they do and how they do it. And like I said, it's so much easier for people to do that these days. You should be bringing in coaches, people like you and me, to kind of work with that mindset stuff, to kind of help people want to do that. But like, don't bring me into your organization and kind of go, cool, Naz, can you help me just inject a load of new knowledge into my guys? Because I can do that, right? I have stuff that I can go, yeah, cool, we'll run workshop A, B, C, right? Awesome. And then I'll go. And then those same people are going to have the same motivation. They might get a little boost because they had someone come in and do a bit of work with them, but that's temporary, that phase, right? Um, and they'll revert to type,
Mm.
right? What you should be bringing people like us in to do is to go, cool, right? I've got these people here. I want to know how to get them to the next level. Can you work with them over a period of time and really kind of unlock sort of what's going on? Because the thing about great coaching, and you'll know this from your experience, is that what a great coach can do is help you realize something about yourself you didn't already know. That they're the most transformative things in coaching.
Mm.
Sometimes the stuff that you're keeping aside that you don't want to share, and a coach can help you find the confidence to share that thing, that blocker that's causing you a problem, and then we can deal with the actual problem, and that's really useful. But actually, great coaching is all about helping you realize something about yourself that you didn't know.
Mm.
It's still true, but you weren't aware of it yourself. And because you've been coached really well, you've come to that realization. And now you've realized that you can start to create a plan of action around that to get you to where you want to get to. That's what fantastic coaching is all about. And I hear the word coaching talked about all the time. I was at the Rec Expo in London recently, right? I was listening to a talk, and the person talking was just going on and on and on about coaching. And what he was describing was not coaching. He's like, "Are your managers coaching people? Are they sitting next to them and telling them what to do?" I was like, what? And I was thinking with a bunch of L&D people at the time, right? And obviously, this is where we get a bit L&D snobby. We were like, I was like, that's not coaching. And they're like, yeah, it's not, is it? Like we had a bit of a laugh about it afterwards, going like, what are they talking about? Like, that isn't coaching. Coaching is not sitting next to someone and going, yeah, good call, mate. Say this instead. Great. I'm such a good manager.
The interesting thing is, I won't get into it. There are some platforms out there that, because this thing, there'll be someone that listens to that talk, and that's what they've gone home and implemented. So, I always think that the people that have platforms should have a personal responsibility to vet the information they're actually distributing
Yeah.
on their platform. But I won't go into that. So look, you're clearly like you've joined you've joined the Entrepreneurs Club.
Yep.
You've started your own your own business recently. How have the first and that was
Feb we launched. Yeah.
okay, cool. How's it going?
Yeah. It's been a wild roller coaster in the first few months. Like I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I knew there was a gap in the market, as we talked about. I knew that that there's a lot that firms aren't necessarily doing or perhaps don't have access to. And I was looking at what was out in the market. I saw a lot of stuff around the onboarding piece, a lot of stuff around management training, but I didn't see a lot around the senior stuff. So I was like, okay, I really think there's a lot I can bring to this. And when I first launched, what was really nice was when I first went public with the company, I had a whole load of people come reach out to me, and these were people that I've trained over the years or worked with that said, "Oh, some of them were like, can we use you now?" Which was great. So I got first few sales out of that. I think I posted on LinkedIn that my when I closed my first deal, and I made a little makeshift gong in my house to celebrate the first deal, and that was 2 days after launching or 3 days after launching. That deal was not set up before I launched the business. That happened after I launched the business. That came from someone that I'd trained as a grad that now owns his own company and asked me to kind of come and do some work with his team. So that was really, really great. And so early stages, there was a lot of stuff happening, and it was really awesome. Things then quietened down a little bit, won't lie, and then it kind of got into the grind of it. And that was like I was waiting for that to happen. I didn't know if that was going to be right at the start or later on, but I knew it was coming. And then kind of tail end of March, April, was a lot more of a kind of a slog, and a lot of conversations happening, lots of really cool conversations happening. But as you probably experienced yourself, like lots of chats, but then okay, cool, so what do we want to do here? And it kind of peaks off a little bit. And then since coming back in May, things have really picked up a lot more now. So this month's been super busy. I've got a lot of meetings this week to kind of close some stuff off. I've got a couple of clients who've just onboarded as well. So summer's gonna be pretty busy for me, which is great. So yeah, I honestly I didn't have a master plan. I'll be honest with you. I probably launched this business the worst way you could possibly launch a business. I didn't have like a year's salary saved up. I didn't have, a whole load of business lined up before I launched. So it was like I knew I had jobs booked when I started.
On the
No,
boat.
like I know, no, but generally, like, and it was so funny because I knew I wanted to do it, and I was like, no, like now's the right time. Let's do this now. I'm ready for this. And honestly, like I was out for dinner with a mate of mine, and he said, like, you know what? I actually think in hindsight you're gonna appreciate this a lot more than doing it the other way. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? He was just like, well, because you have to make it work. Yeah, you're back to that sales pressure that you had when you were a grad. like you've got to make this work. You're not going to get paid if you don't make it work. And actually, a lot of people don't have that, and it's super interesting because like it's true. Like when you don't have, they always tell you when you start a business, make sure you do XYZ things. And look, absolutely, I encourage people to do that. But I've actually think I've benefited from having that kind of sales pressure, because I was coming from an environment where I'd not actually been in a direct sales role for 8 years. I'd done sales before. I'd been in that world, and I've obviously coached and trained salespeople. But as we know, coaching is a little bit different than doing. So it was quite helpful for me, I think, to have that kind of, oh, I've got to do this. This is we've got bills to pay, we've got mortgages, we've got all these things happening. So like actually having that pressure, really feeling that pressure, I think was quite helpful for me personally.
I think a lot of people don't realize that as well. Like, there's old stereotypes and stigma which are, they say that those who can't teach, right? And which there are some people that definitely shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
But when you're working for yourself and you're self-employed, and I hear people moan about like the amount of bank holidays, like, or, sorry, the amount of annual leave they get, or the
mm,
fact that you know, um, their basic salaries or their commission schemes. And I'm sitting there thinking like, dude, like my basic salary is zero.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't kill, I don't eat. And
yeah,
and you think, well, actually, there's a there's in some ways I've become a much better salesperson having that, like, literally it's shit or bust time, and
yeah.
that I'm sure is what you're experiencing. But I've no doubt, mate, I've absolutely no doubt that you're going to be a tremendous success, and you are going to move the needle when it comes to recruitment. You're going to move the needle when it comes to seniors. I'm certain, there'll be people I'll be referring you to for sure, and
Thank you, mate.
you'll be on the Oracle platform soon,
Yeah,
which is good to see. For those of you that don't know about Orca, stay tuned because there's lots of announcements. Other than that, what I would suggest is that we give these people something to leave them with, like something that, if you could give a a founder one piece of advice, right, around how they can get their people better or making more money, like what advice would you want to leave like that founder with?
I would say to the founder, like, be kind to yourself, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of founders bring people in and they put everything into their new people, right? They want these people to be success. They're generous with their time. They care about these people, and they give a load of energy to these people to get learn recruitment, get good at recruitment, right? And then that person that they've hired and trained up is now, a couple of years in the business, and now they want more development. And if you're a founder, you're sitting there going like, well, I've not been holding back, mate. I'm giving you everything I've got. Like, I don't know what else to give you, and it's not, and then you're not failing that person at that time. It's just you've done everything you can to get to a certain point, but that doesn't mean that they're not developing forward. So it doesn't mean that they don't need to develop forward and don't need more support. So what I'd say to founders is like, think about what that journey looks like and what your role in that journey is. And actually, you're going to go from, teacher early on, perhaps, to maybe more of a mentor as time goes on, where it's a bit more light touch with advice. And if you are a good coach, you can use coaching techniques on the way. But at what point do you need external help? That might be the right option. At what point do maybe your organization needs to build something internally to support those people? Are there platforms you can get access to that can, give people access to knowledge? But I would say to any founder, like, map out that journey, but don't stop the journey at where your people are. Think about where you want your people to be. Think about how you want your business to grow. Think about your most loyal, highest performing people. How are you going to reward them outside of all the intrinsic stuff that we talk about all the time in recruitment? Like, how are you going to reward them by giving them future development and a pathway to even great success in the future? And just be honest with yourself around like how can you facilitate that? Because as a founder, it's your job to facilitate it. Doesn't mean you got to do it all, right? What external things can you bring in? What can you connect them with people? A lot of what I used to do when I was a coach is go, oh, you should speak to this person because they're really good at that thing. Go speak to that person. So are there people in your network as a founder that you can intro people into to help them out? Just think about the whole picture and what you can do to contribute to that, and being honest with yourself about what you can't do, and seek to bring those things in. Because otherwise you're going to wake up one day and realize that, yes, it wasn't a problem as such because it wasn't a vocalized problem in your business, but people will drift. People will move on and find those things elsewhere because everybody has this need to keep momentum. Goes back to momentum, what I said earlier. People need to have momentum.
Richard Branson didn't build Virgin by himself.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Ladies and gents, on that bombshell, look, you have been Naz Harrison. I've been Dan Alexander. You've all been wonderful listeners. This is the Performance Zone, and we will see you on the next episode. Cheers.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, guys, that is a wrap for this episode. Now it's time to take what you've learned and keep pushing forwards. Remember, Bamboo Performance is here to support you every step of the way, whether that's through our one-to-one coaching, exclusive live events, or our online training platform. If you're ready, visit our website, and until next time, stay unstoppable. This episode is proudly sponsored by Orca, the online recruitment coaching academy. Get access to live coaching, online courses, and playbooks from the industry's top coaches. Your entire organization can get access for less than the price of one email per day. Sign up today at trainwithorca.com.